Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins 23 years after the apocalyptic event known to survivors as the cancellation. Tribes have formed with unique abilities granted to them by the radiation and all worship different leaders who they see as their post-nuclear gods. After a series of special effects unrelated to the movie, three traveling merchants named Tom, Dick and unfortunately Harry make a river crossing with their donkey. They visit a flea market called Heaven's Gate that sells old world treats like Kellogg's and 7-Up, but it's immediately attacked by a tribe called the Norks. Dressed like they just raided their German grandpa's closet, their general Hector orders the women to be taken prisoner, but our heroes fight them off. It's some very basic combat, and when the boys are eventually defeated, Harry tries to use her pocket knife on Hector, but she gets harpooned by one of his men. Tom's sister is then dragged away by the hole in her leg, and while he manages to escape his beating, Dick takes a flogging and is left a flaccid mess. We then cut to the residence of a woman worshipped by her kingdom with constant chance of her gender and goes only by the title she. Her lieutenant Shandra commands a tribe of female warriors to round up males for her goddess to sacrifice, if only to prevent them from doing all of these movements. We're then shown the leader riding through a field alone, presumably after just murdering a man, and comes across Tom, who's in desperate need of transportation. Leaving the stranger unconscious in a field, he steals her horse, scrapes up his friend and travels to the nearest kingdom, which just so happens to be hers. On a quest to rescue his sister, the boys get sidetracked by a leggy woman named Taffir who appears to like Dick and invites the adventurers back to her place. Preparing the starving travelers' stew, she slips some roofies in, as she's actually an agent of the goddess, and enslaving men is just the thing that they do. After they've passed out, Dick wakes up not a few feet away, shackled inside the pig pen, and gets forced to peel onions for eternity maybe. Tom's been sold to the goddess so that she may have her sweet revenge, but her limp-wristed lieutenant nearly breaks it on his stomach. They take him outside blindfolded, where he's forced to walk the dramatically named Path of Blood, which is just a simple row of spikes that the women push him into, probably to save them from having to clean their swords. Most men must die from the torture because she seems impressed Tom survives, so Shandra attempts to kill him herself, but she prevents her. It's not out of sympathy, and she still just leaves him for dead anyway, but Tom's found soon after by a pack of German shepherds with their pet human. He treats the injured man's wounds, and when recovered, Tark reveals that no one knows where the Norks have taken his sister except for she. We never see this helpful man again, and Tom sneaks back into the castle, avoiding the scantily dressed guards to rescue his friend. Still sat in Taffir's house peeling dinner, Tom saves Dick from crying himself to death and gives the kidnapper a swift what for on their way out. It must kill her because she never recovers, to alert her goddess, and the two go undercover as worshippers, partaking in the daily chants of she. Once she's chosen another flailing man, she then goes out back into the garden and tells Shandra to wait outside while she goes searching a cavernous storage facility. It's filled with upright crates that collapse away to reveal a gladiator and medieval swordsman who must have been patiently waiting inside the whole time. They have a 1v2, and while Spartacus goes down easily, the knight nearly kills the goddess, but she sweeps the legs and finishes him with a dagger. Another gaggle of crammed-in assassins exit a crate, but she runs one through with her sword and seemingly pulls knives out of nowhere to kill the last two. Trying to catch her breath, she's suddenly attacked by what can only be described as Frankenstein's monster, who's slow-moving but has a mean bear hug. She manages to bite a bolt out of his neck, causing Frank's head to explode, and his robotic body begins to just wander around aimlessly. A badly wounded goddess then goes into a grotto guarded by an old fortune teller woman, where it's revealed that the whole fight scene was solely designed to see some skin afterwards. She enters an irradiated hot springs with her boobs out, which I'm sure is the defining catalyst for her wounds to completely heal. It's the reason she's worshipped as a goddess, as Moona doesn't let anybody else inside the grotto, and for whatever reason no one's just killed her to gain entry. Upon returning home, she intends to sacrifice the unlucky man, but Tom's taken his place, and along with Dick they kidnap her right out from under Chandra's nose. They force her to direct them to Nork Valley, and on the first night take shelter in one of the abandoned factories that all look the same. Trying to make a move on the hostage, she lets it clearly be known that she isn't interested in Dick, so he rebuts that he prefers his women thicker anyway. Looking like Sam and Frodo, the friends get some rest, but residents living beneath the building emerge at sunrise, and all three trespassers find themselves held captive. The goddess has led them to the leader of a decaying tribe of wastelanders named Crom, who has them all escorted underground by a guy literally missing an arm. The three are thrown into a room where it's explained that the mutants and she aren't in high standings, and it didn't make much sense for her to even come here in the first place. Crom departs when the walls begin to close in, and it's only a matter of time before all three are crushed to death. But outside, Shandra arrives at the head of a search party of warrior women and track their location into the underground basement. The chainsaw-wielding disciples guarding the entrance are easily cut down, but having arrived too late, Shandra is confused to find no blood staining the walls. The three ripped a grate off the wall to fit inside a hole on the other side, where they were perfectly safe and waiting for a rescue. Now with the tables turned, the goddess tells her girls to let the mutant leader go free as no harm was done, but the cranky Shandra accidentally pops one of his arms off. He doesn't seem to mind though, as it sounds like it happens all the time, and the goddess departs with her new prisoners, but she has a change of heart. Allowing the boys to save Harry and giving them directions to Nork Valley, Chandra's clearly pissed about it and convinces she to join her in following them. The two track the hobbits to the residence of yet another post-apocalyptic pair of gods, pretty boy and girl, who lead a cult of toga-wearing socialites. They're friendly enough, and when joining the tribe for dinner remark at how lucky they are to find a group of people so civilized after their last few encounters. Everybody spends the night dancing, which pretty boy says is an old world custom, but Tom's apparently never heard of it or felt the need to move to music. Dick goes along with it, but he clearly needs some improvement, and we cut to the whole group worn out after apparently a wild night. She and Shandra break into the house and find human body parts in the kitchen, implying that the boys probably just ate the other white meat. The toga-wearing werewolves begin to transform and attack the guests, but the pair of warrior women enter and begin slaughtering the coven. They go down relatively easily with only a stab apiece, and the two saviors decide to join the boys on their journey to rescue Harry. Coming across the residence of a communist leader named Godan, the four are captured by his tribe of axe-wielding monks and taken to their leader. His lieutenant Eva orders them to be killed, but the lazy Godan gets carried in by his servants to hear the travelers' reasons for trespassing. The radiation has given him the ability to levitate his enemies, so the boys claim to only be worshippers seeking his praise. It gets them released and treated like guests, but knowing who the women are, they get taken to the dungeon to be tortured, where the focus is directed at the false god who Eva really has something against. Fortunately, she's saved from further harm when Godan orders Eva to have her brought to his bedchambers, where he claims to want to study her spirit. The torturers turn their focus to stretching out Chandra, while the goddess is taken to the leader for educational purposes, obviously. When the boys make their move to rescue their fellowship, they kill all of the guards inside the dungeon with the assistance of a chained-up Chandra. Dick was flirting with her on the ride over, but she sees him as a bit of a loser until he saves her life, winning him a few brownie points. It turns out Eva's upset that Godan's taken she as his lover and betrays her god by leading them to his bed chambers to save her. Still powerful enough to defeat the trio with actual sound effects from the movie like this. The group are forced to surrender again, and Dick loses any headway he made with Shandra when he doesn't even put up a fight. Still unsuspecting of Eva, the leader orders her to take them back to the dungeon, but she buries an axe into his chest and mocks how a god shouldn't bleed. As a final act of desperation, Godan strangles her to death with the curtains, and the rest of the monks enter to discover their leader murdered just like a regular human. The just as false goddess asserts her barely their authority, which causes the monks to bow in worship to their new leader, as they're pretty fickle. Continuing on their journey, Dick makes up for his cowardice by giving Shandra his robes, as probably the first act of kindness she's ever received from a man after seeing the way she acts. They notice that they're being followed, so a surprisingly spry Dick drops from a tree onto the stranger before realizing he's a large man wearing a tutu. Unsure of what gender Rudolph actually is, Dick's about to go searching for the obvious divider, but a quick moving mist suddenly runs the group off. It's a sleeping gas that knocks out all of our heroes, while the ballet dancer puts on a mask and drags the unconscious bodies back to his own god. Tom makes a genius maneuver where he climbs up a tree right before he passes out as to not be found, and wakes up when the smoke passes. Dick, she and Chandra wake up inside a greenhouse in their own little shower curtain pods, where the hairy man worships a mad doctor named Rabel. He intends to use them for his plant-based experiments apart from the goddess, who he says would be better suited to his breeding studies. She barters her way out of getting Cosby'd by offering up a valuable crystal from her kingdom, which is apparently something that he wants. Rabel allows Rudolph to escort the prisoner Shandra back to the fortress to retrieve it, but the goddess intends to escape before then anyway. When the doctor falls asleep waiting for their return, she swings her container into the nearby fireplace and burns down the greenhouse. The flames melt the otherwise indestructible plastic pods, and the pair escape, while a trapped Rabel presumably perishes in the fire. We jump to Tom continuing his journey, where he comes across the bridge to Nork Valley and a flamboyant border crossing guard named Xenon. The wacky man has the mutant ability to repair broken broomsticks, and when Tom lops off his arm, it simply grows into a clone of himself. It leads to the most terrifying moment of the film when it continues to happen, causing dozens of indestructible dancing Xenons to pursue Tom through the city gates. When she and Dick eventually reach the bridge, they witness Hector and a group of his men bringing a new batch of captives back to the valley. They almost get stuck in the same loop with Xenon, but the pair wisely throw the replicating man onto one of the surrounding landmines and he explodes. Sneaking inside the Nork-occupied city, we get 5 minutes straight of this slow walking through the ruins simply to show off our goddess's legs. Once we get back to the movie, she and Dick enter the Nork fortress through a hole in the side where unresponsive women are being kept in cages. Hector leads a gang of new recruits through the cells and down into their hideout, so the pair replace 2 of them to attend their meeting in disguise. As part of a monthly recruitment event, Hector brings in concubines to serve those who are about to die in combat. Out of the 12 strangely dressed recruits, only 2 will be chosen to join the Nork army, and it's decided through a gladiatorial event for the entertainment of others. The Nork overlord attends in the wildest looking spacesuit and sits atop his Michelin throne with his slave Harriet on a leash. The challengers are ordered to battle, and after dispatching all of the other combatants with entirely too many jump cuts, only one remains to put up a decent fight. He almost kills Dick, who gets saved by the goddess before recognizing each other as the third fighter was Tom, and they're just fighting among themselves. Harry pulls away from the weak god's grip and rushes to their side, but the spaceman orders his men not to kill them for whatever reason. He instead says that his men will enslave She's kingdom in the morning, and allows the 4 to leave, not knowing that the other 3 aren't even part of her tribe. They're about to just straight up ditch her and return home, as she plans to mount an ambush at the bridge by herself, but the 3 decide to stay and help instead. Tom, Dick and Harry assist in digging up landmines to set outside of the city gates, as well as lay various other traps in preparation. Hearing the Nork forces approaching on their horses, the 4 get into position, and when exiting the gate, the goddess sets a moat of gasoline on fire. The party face auxiliary forces with bows and arrows that they've fashioned out of sticks, so the Norks use smoke to cover their approach but are tripped over by Harry. The others stab them to death, and when a second wave leaps over their barricade, the cast have already retreated behind a second barrier. Trying to pull the same trick, Dick's shot in the chest by the harpoonist and almost killed, but the goddess saves him and carries a critically wounded Dick to safety. Falling behind their final defense, the group are overwhelmed, so Tom makes one final charge with a nailboard, and all of the Nork army retreat in fear. It's not him that they're running away from, but Shandra, who's brought the army of warrior women, and the beautiful Rudolph, who seems to have switched sides. Shouting about catching them next time, Hector retreats through the gates and out of the film as the group depart, having finally rescued Harry. Returning to the river crossing, Dick announces that he wants to remain with Shandra as she's finally come around and he could use the protection. You'd assume that Tom would stay with she, or heck even say something to her, but he just jumps on the barge and leaves with his sister. And the movie ends.